and welcome to Philm Phuckery, the unhinged podcast where I romanticize the villains, ship anything with queer tension, and obsess over films that are either genius or deeply cursed, sometimes both. I'm your host, Spencer Jones, and this season we're diving headfirst into the chaotic comfort that is the MCU. As usual, we'll be talking about the villain effectiveness, the gay undertones, the logic, the technicalities, and of course the most chaotic moment. This week we are talking about Thor Ragnarok. This is probably one of my favorite Marvel movies. Somehow I always forget it, even though I swear, and this is not an exaggeration, I've probably watched it like hundreds of times. Like I could probably quote the entire movie right now if you asked me to. There was a moment in time where I was watching it several times a day for probably months. Everything about this movie is just so delicious to me. I don't know how to explain it. And I think it's just like the actors and the way that the story's told and the way that the characters are. I don't know. It's just such a perfect movie. Anyway, so the villains. The first villain that we see is Surtur. It's weird to say it with like an American accent. Anyway, I think it's really funny the conversation that him and Thor have at the beginning because he looks big and scary and he's like fire and a skull with huge horns. But the scene itself is so unserious, and that's how you know that that's not the main villain. You know what I mean? Surtur really thinks that he is this big bad guy and people are scared of him. And then when he does start Ragnarok, like when his crown gets put into the eternal flame, he's like, everybody tremble before me. And he's really hoping that the people of Asgard are like, oh no, in their homes. And he's like stabbing his sword and like crushing things, but no one's home. And I think that's so funny and kind of sad. He thought he was doing something there. And there's no one but Hela on the entire planet? I don't know what to call it, but he's like fulfilling his destiny, but no one's there. Moving on. Loki's also in this movie. He's not the villain of this movie, but he's consistently a villain of the MCU. You know what I mean? The first thing I want to say is that Loki, as much as he both hates himself and other people, he also really loves himself and really wants the love of other people. But when he's dressed as Odin and I feel like he made the play of like him dying and Thor being like, brother, no. Didn't do it for him. Anyway, I feel like Loki had a hand in making the play, okay? But then also the way that he is mouthing the words to the play tells me he's seen it many times. Like he watches it over and over and over again. And I think that's so funny and so narcissistic of Loki to be like, yeah, I saved the day and I'm going to make a play about it. And then I'm going to watch the play over and over again. Speaking of how Loki, he loves people even though he doesn't seem like he does. He does love Thor. He just shows it really awfully as we've talked about before. But the elevator scene right before they do get help when they're going to get the Grandmaster's ship, Loki's like, I think I should probably stay here on Sakaar. And Thor's like, I actually think that's a really good idea. And Loki's like really sad at first because all he wanted was for Thor to be like, no, brother, come home with me. I love you. He realizes, I think, that he fucked up. Thor, I mean, still loves him. It's not that he doesn't love him, and he still trusts Loki later on. But I think that was the moment that Loki realized, like, oh shit, Thor is catching on. And then Thor talks about it too later. He's like, this cat and mouse game that we have, I trust you, you betray me, and we just keep going like that. And he's like, I'm sick of it. I can't do it anymore. And Loki's like, oh, this is Thor's breaking point. He doesn't want me around him anymore. That was really sad for me. He just wants somebody to want him around. He's not properly being the person that people want to be around, but he wants people to be around him. Hope that makes sense. Anyway. The last thing, and this is just a really small thing, is when Loki's like, your savior is here. It's the narcissism and it's the way that he just wants people to love him. And he like really thinks that he's doing something. He's like, yes, I am a good guy and I am saving the day and everybody should love me. It's sweet, but he's doing it wrong. You know what I mean? Like for all the wrong reasons, and he's doing it in all the wrong ways. Anyway, Hela. She is the main villain, obviously. I love Hela. She's such a good villain, I think. She's so regal. She is a queen and she's a badass. And separately, I just fucking love Cate Blanchett. Like she's a great actress and she just plays Hela so well. She has that poise, but she's also really kind of scary. I love it. She carries herself in a way she knows she's queen. And she's like, I know what I deserve and I'm going to take what I deserve. And I kind of love that for her. And I think it's not her fault that she is following her, I want to say, destiny. It's not her fault that her path in life is to be the goddess of death. She didn't ask for that. And she's just doing what she knows is true. She's like, this is what I have to do. This is planned in the cards and I'm going to do it. And she takes it with grace. You know what I mean? And you know what? Even though she does kill a lot of people, like a lot, she's also quite a patient queen, I think. She comes home and she's like, it's so nice to be home. I'm so excited to be here. I'm the rightful queen. People probably know about me, right? They've heard stories, and she's describing who she is and what she's there to do. And she's like, it's so nice to be home. Aren't you guys happy to see me? And then Hogan, I think is his name. He is like, whoever you are and whatever you're here for. And she's like, what did I literally just say? Like, what did I just say? You're not listening to me at all. She has so much patience, I think. She's like, I guess if you guys are gonna fight me, I'm gonna fight back. You know what I mean? I don't think she started it, and maybe she did. But she's like, fine, I'll do what I have to do. But I really wanted you guys to just be happy that I was here, and they weren't. That's kind of on them, I think. I support women's wrongs. Anyway, this is just a specific scene moment that really just plays in my head over and over and over again, and I fucking love it, is when Hela takes the Eternal Flame and she smashes the floor and she falls backwards into the tomb or crypt or whatever, I don't know what to call it, with all of the dead soldiers and Fenris. Fenris is so fucking cool. I'll talk about that in a second. And she's got the Eternal Flame in her hand and she goes, with the Eternal Flame you are reborn. And she does that like hand wave thing and like almost superhero lands, puts her hand on the floor, everybody wakes up. I don't know. It's just so cool. I love that scene so much, the way that she does it. It's just so fluid and it's so filled with emotion and it's just so, I don't know, it's so tense. I don't know. Anyway. And Fenris, I love her. That's the giant wolf, by the way, if you didn't know. I want her so bad. I feel like it'd be so cool to have a giant wolf. Think about how badass that would be. You could probably ride her into battle, right? And she's so strong. She's so beautiful. I know she's silky. I just want to meet her once. Anyway, back to Hela. To be the goddess of death, such a flex. I don't know if it's just that I have an affinity for like the darker things in life. I don't know how to explain it. I feel like that's a quote from something. But I like gothic things and I like Halloween and I like, I don't know, whatever. But the goddess of death, that's so fucking cool. And the way that she can literally make blades appear out of her hands or like out of the ground. She just makes them appear. That's so cool. I know she's killing people. I know. But I feel like if she wasn't, people could be like, wow, that's really cool. And they should be. Maybe I'm just a freak. But if she killed me, I'd be like, wow, that was really cool. How you just stabbed me with something from like a blade that came out of nowhere. That was really cool. Thanks. That's just me being gay, I think. But anyway, speaking of her killing like most people, she did kill all of Thor's friend group. Besides Lady Sif, all of his friend group is dead. I don't feel any type of way towards any of those characters. I never bonded with them, you know? But I do feel like it just gets brushed past. With what events transpire after Thor Ragnarok, like right after they get on the ship, I feel like Thor didn't have time to really think about anything. But I do think that that little aspect of his whole friend group dying, I feel like that should be taken into account when you think about how depressed Thor gets later on. This movie, it's so funny, but everything that happens to it is just such a lead up to something awful happening to Thor. I think that people should mention that more, that his friends got slaughtered by his sister, who he then had to destroy his home to kill. It's just a lot for Thor, and I think it's really sad. And it didn't occur to me really watching this movie because it's such a funny movie, but there are a lot of dark moments for Thor in this movie that kind of get brushed over, you know? Anyway, I do have a question though. I wonder if his friends go into Valhalla because you have to die in battle, right? To be sent to the gates of Valhalla. I don't know how it works, but I do know that you have to die in battle. And I also am thinking, I feel like the second that Hela steps foot on Asgard, that's the start of a war, right? That's like literally her legacy or her whatever. I don't know. They were like ready to fight her, but she just kind of killed them with no really fight. So maybe if they were like attempting to go fight her and then she killed them, that still counts as them dying in battle. I just don't know. I hope they're in Valhalla for their sake. I do think it's really sad though, speaking of her purpose. This is what she was meant to do. Odin dies, she comes back, she conquers Asgard, I guess, and then conquers the other realms. Like that's what she was meant to do. She really does believe that she's the savior of Asgard, and I think that's really sad. She really thinks she's doing good. This is who she is. She's the goddess of death, and she's like, I'm the rightful queen, so I am the savior of Asgard. We're gonna make it different because my father changed his plans and then imprisoned me. I do think it's really sad that she is thinking she's doing good, and then everyone's like, I probably have to kill you though. Sorry. Speaking of that though, I kind of love the way that Loki and Hela, I think, have way more similarities than either of them do with Thor. And I think it's really interesting because Loki is adopted. But I'm wondering, and this is probably a stretch, but I'm wondering if Frigga told Loki stories about his older sister or like kind of hinted at things, because I just feel like the similarities are way too similar for it to be coincidence that they have so much in common, I think. And I'm wondering if Frigga just like missed her daughter a little bit and it was like, Loki, you had a really cool older sister. Like she was kind of a bad guy, but I do miss her because she's my daughter. And let me tell you stories about her, because Loki can choose his appearance. Especially we learn later on in the Loki show that he really can change his appearance. You know what I mean? So I feel like he chose the dark hair. When he gets his typical Loki get up, he's got the horns, and that is really similar to Hela's. Like she's got the spiky spiky things on her face or her head. They both got the dark hair. He's the god of mischief. She's the goddess of death. I feel like that's pretty intertwined. They both have this complex that they're like, I am the rightful heir. I am going to be the savior of Asgard. I can really make this place better, but they're doing it in the wrong way. So I just think that's interesting that Hela and Thor are biological siblings, but Hela and Loki have more in common than Thor does. Like Thor's kind of the odd man out in his siblings if you think about it, which is kind of crazy. So that's interesting. Anyway, moving on to the gay undertones. I think everything about this movie is just inherently queer. I'm going to try to explain my reasoning, but it's kind of difficult. It's just a feeling, it's the vibe. I think it has a lot to do with the cast. Like all of the people in the cast are so inherently queer and I don't know how to explain why, but I'm going to name the people who I think are just like queer by vibe. And I think it's also that most of the people in the cast have played queer characters in other things. So anyway, we've got Jeff Goldblum. He is ADHD incarnate, but also I think is just so in touch with his feminine side that it just gives a little queer. And I love it. I love Jeff Goldblum. I'll talk about it later. But Tessa Thompson, she plays Valkyrie. So Valkyrie is gay. And I'll talk about it after I'm done with this bullet point. But Tessa Thompson, the way she plays Valkyrie, so gay. Anyway, Tom Hiddleston. Something about Loki is also just so queer. Later on, we learn that he is bisexual canonically in the MCU. But something about Tom Hiddleston is just gay. I don't know if it's the long greasy hair, something. I don't know. Taika Waititi. He plays a queer Blackbeard in Our Flag Means Death. One of my favorite fucking shows, by the way. I love Taika Waititi so much. I can't get over it. Anyway, he's just inherently queer. Just the way that he is. I love him. Anyway, Cate Blanchett. She plays a lesbian in like 3 different things, I'm sure. She's queer. And somehow Chris Hemsworth too, I think. He's just such an ally. And I think it is the Thor character mostly that makes him that way. But I feel like a lot of people I've seen have talked about how Thor is such an ally for the gays. There's like a specific picture I'm thinking of where Chris Hemsworth is with some fans and he's holding up the pride flag and he's like, I don't know how to explain it, but he's like protecting them. You know what I mean? And that's what Thor feels like to me and to a lot of other people, I think, is like the protector of the gays. He's just such an ally in that way. And I think Chris Hemsworth being inherently queer to me is based on Thor. But either way, just everything about the cast of this movie feels inherently queer. And then also the characters themselves, I think, are just so queer. And I think it's partially because something about Asgard feels very old-timey before people were like, gay is really bad. I'm going to be scared of the gays. It gives, they don't care. You know what I mean? Pleasure's pleasure. That's how I feel the Asgardians feel. And I think that is probably swaying my decision. That being said, though, and this isn't like a gay thing, but it's a feminist thing, which I feel like I want to group them together. But Thor is so dumb, but he means so well. When he's talking to Valkyrie and he's like, it's about time that there's an elite warrior of female fighters or whatever he says. He like gives her the thumbs up and he's so goofy and he's so dumb, but he means well. And he genuinely is like, period, there should be female warriors. He like wanted to be a Valkyrie when he was younger and he was like, oh damn, it's only for women. Like that's fine. I'll just leave it to them. And his friend, Lady Sif, he has always understood that she is as strong as him and she can fight just the same as men. I think he's really goofy and really dumb about it, but he does really care about women and he is a very good feminist, I think. And by extension as well, because later on Valkyrie is so obviously gay and they're just besties and he's like ally. He's for the girls and the gays and I really love it. And I think that's really translated through this movie specifically. I do just want to point out Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson. They are Thor and Valkyrie in this movie. They are also in a Men in Black movie. And in this movie, when Thor is like, about time, and he gives her the thumbs up with like a goofy smile, there's another scene in Men in Black that they're in together where he tells her the same thing or like something similar where he's like, women can do anything. Yeah. And he gives her like a thumbs up with a goofy smile. And I just wanted to point that out. I think it's really funny that it happened twice. Moving on. Valkyrie. She is so gay. We learn later on that all of the Valkyries died besides her. And we see a flashback of her moments fighting Hela. It's so obvious that her girlfriend, because all of the Valkyries are her sisters, right? But her girlfriend saved her life. And ever since then, she's been drinking to die. And I think that's really valid. I think that if there's anything gay, it's the fact that you lose your girlfriend and you are trying to drink yourself to death. I just feel like that's so lesbian of her. It's like dramatic in the most lesbian way possible. If I was dating someone and I loved them so much and then they died for me to protect me, I'd be doing worse than her. Like I'd probably just kill myself. So she's doing pretty good, all things considered. This is just a small thing and I think it's just me being gay. But the scene where Valkyrie, I think her ship has just gone down and she's just gotten to the Grandmaster's ship with Thor and Banner. She jumps off to like defeat all of the other ships as they're following them to the Devil's Anus. That's just a really cool scene. That's it. She just looks really cool. Another like really cool scene, it's the scene where she's put on all of her Valkyrie gear that Thor found in the armory, and she's got that big ass gun that they just loaded into the Grandmaster ship, the orange one. The way that she gears up the gun, I just have nothing respectful to say about that scene. It's so gay. She's so fine. Anyway, there are moments in this movie when they're kind of trying to push Thor and Valkyrie. Honestly, it never occurred to me. I just never paid attention to it because why would they do that? She's obviously gay. She's doing all that with the gun and you're trying to tell me that she has feelings for a man? No. But there are moments in the movie that I was paying attention to this time in which they're kind of showing that Valkyrie and Thor have a little bit of tension. She's kind of glancing at him a little longer. There's a little bit of longing. When they both jump back into the Grandmaster ship after fighting the ships following them, there's like that moment where they're too close to each other and she like backs up for a second. I wish they hadn't done that. And I think it's so subtle enough that you can not pay attention to it, which is what I've been doing this whole time. But I do think it's pretty upsetting that you're going to have this like very obviously queer character who's like so upset that her girlfriend died. And you're trying to convince me that she is falling for Thor, or she thinks he's attractive, or there's like some unspoken thing between them. No, come on now, be so for real. I think that because it's so subtle and I honestly didn't even think about it until I had to, I'll let it slide, only because they didn't continue on with it. Like they left it alone. Beyond that, and I already talked about it, but just like all of the characters are gay. This is the one where the vibe of the whole movie is gay. And Hela's queer. Loki's very obviously queer. Honestly, Scourge probably is a little queer. They just all are. I don't know what to tell you. This is one of the gayest Marvel movies, I think. Other than whatever they're doing with Captain America and Bucky, this is the queer. You know what I mean? Anyway, I do want to take this moment to talk about myself for a second. Speaking of Valkyrie, this movie came out when my sister-in-law was pregnant with my first niece. And I remember thinking, okay, what is my niece going to call me when she can start talking? And I don't really like my birth name. So I was like, I don't really want her to call me that. But I was like, haha, wouldn't it be so funny if she called me like Thea Valkyrie? She's a badass. And like, I love this movie so much. That was the time that I was watching the movie over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. I was like, haha, that'd be so funny. And then I was like, wait, Thea Valkyrie kind of has a ring to it. And I was like, is that silly? Is that dumb if I like ask your child to call me Thea Valkyrie? And my family was like, it's not that dumb. Like it doesn't matter what they call you really, you know? And so I went with it and I was like, I'm Thea Valkyrie. And now I have 3 nieces and a nephew and they all call me Thea Valkyrie. And I love it so much. And for 6 years, that's how old my oldest niece is, I've been Thea Valkyrie. Really my one personality trait is that I am a Thea. I did also recently get a Valkyrie tattoo. So in this movie, Valkyrie has her Valkyrie symbol tattoo, which is how Loki knows that she's a Valkyrie. She's got a Valkyrie tattoo, so I have like something similar to that because literally it's my entire personality is being an aunt. And I love it. I'm so good at it, by the way, not to toot my own horn. All of this to say, though, that Valkyrie is just a very special character to me in my personal life. And I think that everybody should love her. And that's it. Moving on to the logic portion, it was interesting to think about and also really fucking sad towards the end that when Hela goes into Odin's treasure room and she's like, this gauntlet's fake, and she pushes the Infinity Gauntlet over. I was like, haha, that's so funny. He's got a fake thing when like a treasure room is so special and he's a king and you would think that he's got all of the treasures. Like, why would he have a fake thing? And then later on the end credit scene, which I'll talk about in a little bit, we see what is going to happen later on. And it's, you know what? The movie came out a million years ago, so I'm going to spoil it. It is Thanos coming their way at the end. And he already has the Infinity Gauntlet. And I think it's really interesting and really fucking sad to think, it's the fake gauntlet. And then it's like, I know who has the real one. And he's collecting Infinity Stones like right now as we speak. And he's like really fucking close to where they are because when they start fleeing Asgard, he's there. Anyway, I just want to talk about Korg as a character for a second. I've already said that I fucking love Taika Waititi. I think I've said it before, but there's only 4 men in this earth that I love so dearly, and Mads Mikkelsen is one. I just want to bring it back to him real quick. Taika Waititi is another. That man is fine as hell, and he's so funny, and something about the New Zealand accent, I don't know. That man is so fine. Anyway, Korg, he's so funny. I really love the scene where Thor is trying to explain his hammer to Korg, and he's like, oh my God, you rode the hammer? The hammer pulled you off? And he's like, it sounds like you have a special and intimate relationship with this hammer. And Thor's like, that's a really nice way of putting it. I just think it's really funny that he's like not understanding. Because when you describe the hammer in the way that Thor describes it, it kind of does sound, it's like, okay, buddy, you and this special hammer. He just doesn't describe it well, and I think it's really funny. Just everything about Korg, and I don't know if it's just like the cadence of his voice and probably the accent as well, but everything he says is so quotable. I remember all of his lines. I've written down 3 of my favorite ones, and these are ones that I say pretty regularly. They have nothing to do with everyday life, but I say them all the time. I love when Thor's talking to Loki and he's not really there, and then Loki disappears and Korg goes, piss off, ghost. He's freaking gone. And then he goes, hey man, we're gonna go jump on that ginormous spaceship, wanna come? And then also, I wish that I could say this one more. I don't know why it's so fucking funny to me when Thor is running around trying to figure out an exit when he gets captured by the Grandmaster. And he's like, yeah, no, this place is a circle, but not a real circle, more like a freaky circle. I need to work on my New Zealand accent, but point is I love Korg. And I love the way that he talks, and everything he says is just so quotable in such a funny way. Anyway, I really thought that the reveal of the Hulk being the Grandmaster's champion was really cool. Thor gets so excited that he knows the Hulk. He's like, wait, we're friends. And then he's like, you're embarrassing me. I told him we were friends. Why are you fighting me right now? And then Loki, I love that Loki gets so obviously distressed because in Avengers, last time he saw the Hulk like smashed him into the ground a whole bunch. And Loki's like, I have to leave, please. I can't be here. And then he gets so excited when Thor gets smashed around by the Hulk. And I really liked that little nod to the Avengers. I thought that was really funny, and I think it makes sense. If somebody smashed me to the ground like that, I'd be like, oh fuck, I can't be in his presence. Speaking of Thor and the Hulk though, it was a very interesting duo, I think, for this movie. It just isn't a pairing that I would have thought would work together, but I really love that they did it in this movie. I feel like it gives Banner more of a personality. He's allowed to be a little more funny in this movie. It's just such an interesting friendship to explore, I think, because I never would have guessed that they would be a pairing. You know, it just is like they're thrown together and they make it work. And I feel like their personalities go so well together in this movie. I feel like most of the characters' personalities, like all of them have their own, I mean, I guess that's like literally how life works, but the way that they interact with each other is just so beautiful. I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna move on. Back to Valkyrie real quick. There's the scene where Thor and Hulk are in their bedroom, I guess. Valkyrie comes in and Thor is like, I'm putting together a team. You're going to be on my team. And Valkyrie's raising a knife to his face and he like slowly pushes down the knife and she raises up another one. I love that scene. That's it. I just feel like it's so in Valkyrie's character. It's just not an important part. The only important thing is that he uses it as a sleight of hand to get the remote control for the thing in his neck. But I thought it was a really funny thing to add in place of the sleight of hand. You know what I mean? Anyway, one thing that I think is what makes this movie so special to me is that the characters are so awkward. Thor specifically, so awkward. I think it really appeals to me because I'm a very awkward person just by nature. I feel like most people are. I try to tell myself anyway. Most superhero movies, it's like they're all perfect and they can't do anything wrong and everything always goes right. Like you jump off of a building and you land perfectly and your knees don't hurt or whatever. Or Natasha fights with her hair down and her hair is always so silky when she comes back up. I really love that this movie, things don't go perfectly and they're still super cool heroes, but things don't work out the way that they're supposed to. In the way that like Thor is trying to be super cool and he throws the ball at the glass and it hits him in the face and then he just keeps going. That's awkward and life works that way. And I really like that they put that in here because not only is it funny, but it's relatable. It kind of makes me feel better about myself in that like I can still be a super cool, awesome person, even if I fall and I'm super clumsy all the time. Or when the Hulk is like, I got you, don't even worry. And he jumps from the spaceship and then just splats on the ground. It's so real and I love it. One thing I hate, and it's kind of not a love hate, but it's like an understanding / hate, is the video of Natasha being the thing to like calm the Hulk down so he can turn back into Banner. My problem with it is I appreciate the consistency of it. I appreciate that they're using the last thing we saw of him from Age of Ultron. And they're kind of continuing with how Natasha and him are now friends. Because I like that they don't continue on with that relationship, but they're friends enough that she's able to calm him down. I appreciate the consistency of it. I do hate them together, however. I hate that they even had that to begin with. So I just wanted to point that out. But at least they're consistent, I guess. What I do really hate though, and this is just a small thing, but this has always bothered me in any movie. So Valkyrie has her hair up for most of the movie. And then the big fight scene comes. She's got her like special Valkyrie armor that Thor got for her. She takes her hair down to fight Hela, the big bad. That pisses me off. I get that it's a glorious scene and people think that women look better with their hairs down and flowing and whatever, but like as a warrior, she's not taking her hair down. Be so fucking for real. In fact, if it was down, she'd be putting it up. That's how like warriors do it. It makes me so mad that filmmakers try to make women look more appealing when they're getting ready to fight by leaving their hair down. It makes me so furious because that's just simply not how life works. I've said this before, not on the podcast, but just like in life. And I tell people all the time, if a zombie apocalypse hits, or if we're in some post-apocalyptic world, or like if I need to go into any sort of fight, I'm either shaving my head or I'm stocking up on hair ties because you will not catch me with my hair down. Fuck that. If it gets in your face, you're fucked. My hair is really thick, so it's pretty fucking annoying either way. It also, when your hair is down, I feel like it just gives your opponent more ability to be scrappy. And I guess a ponytail is a better handle, but like you can just grab hair. You know what I mean? Ain't no fucking way a warrior is taking her hair down for the biggest fight of the movie. You got me fucked up. Anyway, this is kind of a big thing, and I hope that I can make it make sense because this is something that occurred to me as I was watching it this time. So the way that time works on Sakaar, I never really thought about it. I just took what they were saying as face value. I was like, yep, okay, so time works different, whatever. And I just moved past it. What is interesting though is that I'm pretty sure, and I could be wrong, I'm not very smart, time on Sakaar moves faster than other places because Thor and Loki left the Bifrost within like a minute of each other, but Loki's been there for weeks. So time moves faster on Sakaar. I didn't think anything of it, but I used to think it was just like a joke when the Grandmaster was like, on any other world, I'd be like thousands of years old or whatever he says, but here on Sakaar, and he trails off. I thought it was a funny joke because Jeff Goldblum's kind of older in this movie. You know when a woman is like, I'm 21. She's obviously like in her 40s probably. And not that that's old, but it's like a joke that people use when they're like, I'm 21 for the 6th time or whatever. So I thought it was one of those jokes where he's like, don't ask me my age, but I'm younger. It occurred to me this watch, thinking about the way that time actually works on Sakaar. He probably doesn't know how old he is. If he's like thousands of years old somewhere else, he's like millions, billions of years old on Sakaar, which is crazy. So anyway, with that being said, and me figuring this out, we learned that the Hulk has been the Hulk for 2 years. Ultron happened 2 years ago. However, on Earth, he's been the Hulk for 2 years, but on Sakaar, he's been the Hulk for so much longer. And that's so sad and so scary. And I wonder if time feels like it's moving that quickly. Because if Loki knows that he's been there for several weeks, then probably you feel the progression of the time at Sakaar, I'd imagine. I don't really know how that works, but the Hulk having been the Hulk for more than 2 years in the way that Sakaar's time works, and if a few minutes is a few weeks, that's insane. That's like way too many years that the Hulk was the Hulk, and that's really sad to think about. I also wonder if Valkyrie, because Asgardians live for like hundreds of years, so I'm wondering if Valkyrie chose to live on Sakaar in order to, because she would still feel the time pass, but I think it'd be appealing to her to drink her life away in a place where time moves faster than anywhere else, which is really sad. But I think that had some appeal to her as well. The last thing I want to say before I move to the technicalities is that our end credit scene, I've already talked about it, I think, but it just like hurts me so much. Thor's like, I think everything's going to be just fine. And then it pans to Thor and Loki looking at this giant ship headed towards them. And that's the end of the end credit scene. But knowing whose ship that is and what happens next to them, it's so heartbreaking. I just can't handle it. Like, don't talk to me. I can't do this. Thor and Loki went through so much. And then Thor goes through so much more. And so does Loki. I'm just so sad. I feel like Marvel can never let us be happy. It's kind of fucked. Anyway, that being said, let's move to the technicalities. I just want to point out that if I had a nickel for any time that an actor who's played a Marvel character has also played Hannibal Lecter, I'd have 2 nickels. And that's not a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. Anthony Hopkins, the guy who plays Odin in this movie, he also played Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs. And then Mads Mikkelsen, my love, he played Hannibal Lecter in Hannibal, the show. And I just found that interesting. Anyway, back to my boy, Jeff Goldblum. I love him. Like I said, ADHD incarnate. That man loves to hear himself talk, and I'm here for it. I feel like they just put Jeff Goldblum on set. They put him in makeup, and they were like, here's kind of what the movie's about. Here's the deal with Sakaar. And then they just let him be himself for the whole time that he was on screen. And I really love it. What a guy. I'd love to meet him one day. Anyway, this was a very quick scene, but I really liked that they put in there when Loki is visiting Thor in the Grandmaster's freaky circle, and he's not really there. But when Thor is like, I'm actually still really mad at you, and Loki's like, what could you possibly be mad at? And he's like, here's all the things that happened to me in the past 2 days. It was a really quick thing. It was very funny, but it also really put it into perspective of how much shit Thor went through in literally 2 days. And then how much more shit he's gone through in this movie just to get more shit thrown on him after this movie. It's really sad. That was a good idea of putting into perspective. Anyway, I've said it before, but I want to say it again. Movies like this, when ripped men have their shirt off for a scene, I just really feel like they ask for it. And like, as they should. I'm not mad. It's not exciting for me to see personally. Most of the time I'm like, I wish my muscles were that toned. But the scene where Thor is being taken care of by like the Grandmaster's people after fighting with Hulk, and he's got his shirt off, I know he was like, let me like hike my pants down a little bit so you can see that V muscle. And I know he was flexing the whole fucking time. And as he should. If you spend months, maybe even years, I don't know how it works, but you spend a really long fucking time getting in shape for a superhero movie that's gonna last forever. And in a franchise that people watch so much, like it's such a big franchise, you want that shit immortalized. You want it like set in stone. I was this ripped at one point, so you can look back on it and be like, I worked hard and I can show for it, you know? And so period, as you should. It tickles me a little bit to think that the men in movies like these are like, please let me have my shirt off for one scene. I just really think that that's 100% what it is. And he was flexing the whole time. He's got like his abs flexed. Anyway, something about the choreography when Loki and Valkyrie are fighting each other. It's after the Grandmaster is like, you guys have to find Thor, like you guys are responsible for him as his brother and the person who captured him. After they leave him, they have this like really quick fight scene, but the choreography is so good. The quick punches and the blocks and everything. And then she's got the knife to his throat. And then she puts her knee on his chest to like pin him down. I have no straight thoughts about that, but the choreography was really good. And then afterwards, when she's mad and she flips around him with her leg, you know? Point is, the choreography was really good. I really liked it. It's embedded in my brain, and Valkyrie is so good looking. Anyway, speaking of that scene though, that is when Loki's like, must be a painful memory. Let's relive it. The graphics of that scene are so cool. And I don't know if this is a thing that other people experience, but sometimes I look at art and I'm like, I want to inject this art straight into my veins. Do you know what I mean? I want to like Clockwork Orange, open my eyes and just only look at this image and just sear it into my mind, this artwork. So you guys ever feel that, or just me? I might just be crazy, but there are some artworks that I'm like, I just want to only live this artwork forever and ever and ever. And those scenes are one of them. They're just so stunning. And the story that they tell with like 6 frames or whatever, it's so beautiful. Anyway, I don't know if y'all remember, but I think it was Iron Man 3 when I was talking about how when I was little, when big things would change, I freaked the fuck out. Like when Iron Man blew up all of his suits, I was like, I don't like it. This movie, I got over it pretty quickly. But I remember when Thor's eye got taken or cut or whatever, not really clear on what happened, but his eye's gone. I freaked the fuck out. I was like, Thor only has one eye. What the hell? He's different now. And then it was fine. They got him an eye replacement and he had an eye patch. And I've watched this movie so many times now that I just don't care. But I do remember being like, oh, it's different. So I'm hoping at least one other person felt that. But anyway, I've never heard anyone talk about this and I think it's just too minor and I'm not around the right people. But I found it really interesting that Fenris was able to break the Hulk's skin. There's the scene where they're fighting, they've jumped off the Rainbow Bridge, they're in the water about to fall, and Fenris pierces his skin and he's bleeding. That was really cool. I looked it up because I'm not super well versed in the Hulk thing, whatever. I just don't care. He is bulletproof and like explosives don't work on him. And human technology doesn't work on him. Things like adamantium and vibranium can pierce his skin, but not a lot of things can. But Fenris was able to pierce his skin. I thought that was interesting, and I don't know if it's just because of the bite force or what, but I just wanted to point that out because that was really interesting to me. I was like, wait a minute, and he bleeds green. I feel like it makes sense, but it's interesting. Wait, now I'm wondering if Bruce Banner, he probably bleeds red, right? I can't picture a scene in which Bruce is bleeding. Is he also bulletproof? Or I guess when the bullet hits him, he turns into the Hulk and the Hulk saves him. But that's a really quick transformation. I don't know. Moving on. I don't care. I just wanted to point this out because it's all I can think about. When Hela's walking across the Rainbow Bridge, it's very dramatic, and Loki and Valkyrie and Thor are lined up on the Rainbow Bridge getting ready to fight Hela, and they're like these big badass people who are facing against the big bad guy. who's also a badass. I one time saw a meme, I think, and they're like, "Oh, the Powerpuff Girls," because Loki's green and Thor is red and Valkyrie's blue. And now it's all I can see. Anyway, that's it for the technicalities. The most chaotic moment, I had a tough one with this, and not because there aren't chaotic moments. I feel like the whole movie is chaotic. The toughest part was trying to find my favorite chaotic moment, so I chose a really underrated moment, I think. I don't know that it's the most chaotic, but it's one that I wanted to talk about specifically. And it's the scene where the Hulk is now Bruce Banner. He's just calmed down, and he's freaking out about being on a different planet, and he's freaking out about being Hulk for 2 years or probably more. He's like, I don't know that if I turn into the Hulk again, I don't think I'll ever come back. And he's freaking out. And Thor is so unserious. He's like, well, don't even worry because we're going to go home. And he's like, thank you so much. What a good friend you are. And he's like, well, my home though. Not yours. Sorry. You have to help me fight my sister. And he's like, I don't want to fight your sister. That's a family issue. Just the dialogue between the two of them. I think it's just a good change of pace for Bruce Banner to be funny. I feel like he hasn't really had the opportunity to be comedic in other movies. And I think it's a nice change of pace. And I think that scene is just too funny to me. I don't know. I've written down my favorite quotes from it too. When he's freaking out and he's like, we are on an alien planet that is designed to stress me out. That's so real. And then Thor gives him Tony's clothes because it's the only thing on the Quinjet. Thor's like, I need a disguise. And Bruce is like, I need a disguise too. I'll be Tony. And Thor's like, you don't have to be Tony. Bruce is the disguise. You don't look like the Hulk. And he's like, well, why'd you dress me as Tony then? And he's like, because you were naked. He goes, I'll give you that. I think it's so funny. And the way he keeps adjusting his pants and he's like, Tony wears really tight pants. And Thor being like, though Bruce Banner is smart, he is my friend. I do need the Hulk. And he's like, you're just using me. That's gross. And then he's like, how many PhDs does the Hulk have? 0. How many PhDs does Bruce Banner have? 7. And then later on, it's not in the same scene, but I do love when he's like, use one of your PhDs to fly the ship. And he's like, none of them are for flying alien spaceships. Anyway, I just think that scene, it's very quick, but I think it's just very chaotic in the way that we get to see Bruce be funny, I feel like, for the first time. As much hate as I give him, he's really funny in this movie. And then it's also Thor is trying to get him on his team, and Bruce is like, I literally told you I cannot be the Hulk anymore. And he's like, but I need you to be though. And he's like, I don't think that's a good idea. And he's like, we're gonna do it anyway. I do think it's really sad though, but it's funny as well, the way that Banner is like literally expressing a very valid and very real concern to Thor, and Thor is not listening at all. It's just very chaotic in that sense as well. And I do want to give Mark Ruffalo props for being funny in this movie. He is really hilarious as Bruce Banner. I think it's just the banter between him and Thor, and also Valkyrie. But anyway, that's all I have. So behold my stuff. If you'd like to follow me, I am on TikTok and Instagram as PHILM Phuckery. And if you're listening on Spotify or watching on YouTube, just know that this podcast exists on both as Philm Phuckery with a PH for both. And if you are enjoying what you're listening to and or watching, I would love it if you would interact in any kind of way, if you would follow me on things, if you would tell your friends and family, if you would listen to episodes again while you're trying to disassociate from the fact that Thanksgiving is coming up and you have to spend time with your family, or while you're doing chores, cleaning your house for your family to come over, or whatever. Anyway, thank you for listening and or watching, and I will see you next week for Black Panther. Okay, love you. Bye.